This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Sean Preston.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on with us today, and that is Dan Saso of Beaver Rock. What is going on today?
Oh, man. Well, apart from the beautiful weather, we have a lot of things that, we're trying to do in addition to manage the business. So for the most part, it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose, right? There's just so much coming at us, but it's all really exciting. It's all community driven, but also, there are things that we do that are important to us that are also important to our community and our patrons, everybody.
Well, I'm very excited to have you on the show today. I am a raving fan of your coffee. So is my fiance. It's in the house. We drink it every morning. Had it this morning, and you and I have had a couple of conversations in the past. I'm really looking forward to having you on and helping you share your story with our neighbors here across Simcoe County. So why don't we dive right into it, and why don't you let our listeners know a little bit about your business?
Okay, so Beaver Rock was established in 2013, and my wife and I got involved in providing some seed capital to get it lifted off the ground. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out the way that it should have. We ended up in litigation with the founder, and in the process of being granted the ability to move forward, with our agreement, we ended up deciding to take it on as a business and give it new birth. So while we're not the founders, we're the refounders, if you will. We recreated it, and we took everything that we learned from what was presented to us and what we saw operationally, and started to make a bunch of changes and established a number of things that were important to us that should be important to everybody in our community and wherever we serve.
Beautiful. So if I'm listening to the show and I hear Beaver Rock, other than me kind of giving it a little bit away, what is it?
So Beaver Rock fundamentally started as a coffee roaster that packaged only in one format. So we only did K-Cups. But the notoriety of it was that we were the very first company to come in 2014, and we won an award for it, the Grocery Innovations Canada Award for innovation. And what we did was we were the first company to offer a fully recyclable K-Cup. So polypropylene 5 cups, polypropylene filters, aluminum lids, and which is a great stepping stone because we all know the story about what happens in our landfill sites.
Right.
So we made a diligent effort, and it was costlier to do so, but we got some notoriety because of it, and it was absolutely unequivocally the right thing to do. So when Roz and I took over, we saw some opportunities that were just outside of that world, and we decided that there was it was appropriate for us to rebrand it. So we came to the conclusion that we wanted to change the image of it. The original image didn't have any pizzazz, and our image with the icon of the beaver and the tagline "Damn Good Coffee" fundamentally backstopped who we are. So we spent an inordinate amount of time of figuring out how to roast coffee. What about the science behind it? What about the soil science behind it? And through that whole process and a number of iterations, we came up with the notion that at every temperature when you roast, there's a nuance of the bean. In other words, it has a flavor, a texture, a boldness at every temperature. So finding the ideal ones became a very, very important part of what we do. The long and short of it is we created probably in excess of 250 profiles that captured the best nuance of every bean, regardless of species. And so, there are things that we do that are certainly different than our competitors. And I talk to them from time to time. They think we're nuts. So here's a perfect example. Take a medium roasted coffee. We will roast the same bean. Let's say it's a Peruvian bean from the north of Peru in the Coliseo region, San Francisco. And we'll roast it 3 different ways. For simplicity, light, medium, and dark. What we found was there's a really nice nuance in each one. So we blend them. Rather than pick a midpoint and just roast it, we blend them. What do? We get the best absolute nuance for a medium. It has the right coloration, the right texture, the right humidity. And what's great about it is that it brews phenomenally well. So you get a nice robustness in a medium that finishes well. So there's no aftertaste. That's just a small example of what we do. We have great relationship with the farmers. And the reason why we need to talk to them is because nobody knows more about the soils, the harvesting, and the packaging of coffee, green coffee, than they do. Nobody. We've also, had discussions with our scientist friends at the University of Guelph. They help us understand what we have to do for food safety and all that stuff. So we reach out, and those resources don't cost anything. People want to help, right? They want to participate in having the industry shine. So that's part of a big part of it. Over the last several years, we decided that it was important for us to do some things that would improve not only our business, but also offer more. So we started offering whole bean. We also package teas in K-cups, and we also package a phenomenal hot chocolate that we had custom developed for us from a phenomenal company in Amsterdam. So when you get a Beaver Rock hot chocolate, it's a European style. It's just amazing what they do. And for lack of a simpler term, it's agglomerated, which means if it's in a K-cup, it'll fully dissolve. But fundamentally, we follow 4 tenets, and they're important tenets. And the reason why I say that is because it covers a spectrum of everything that we need to say about who we are and what we do. So the first thing is we offer quality. We don't do anything that isn't quality. We only buy current crops. We only buy them from farms and regions we know. And we only, we profile them before we actually start to roast them. You need to do that. So we cup them. Anything like wine, anything less than an 80 is just not even part of it. So the scale goes from 0 to 100. We only choose those varietals and those species that are 80 plus, that we can cup at 80 plus, because there's no point in doing anything else. Is it more expensive? Absolutely. What does it give you? It gives you a phenomenal cup of coffee. It gives you what you should have every day. And it gives you more of a European style of coffee than, say, a North American style of coffee. The second thing that we take big interest in is human health. So I'm a cancer survivor. Something that's important to me is decaf coffee. I don't drink it, but a lot of people do. And the way that you remove the caffeine from coffee is crazy important, because there are companies out there that will decaffeinate the coffee. What they do is they use chemicals. So with all the chemicals that are involved in it, who needs to ingest them, right? There's a company that we stick to called Swiss Water Process, SWP, and they use temperature, heat, time, and pressure to remove the caffeine, leaving the bean and the integrity and the nuance of the bean intact. So all those things come favorably to us. Human health and the environment are intertwined inextricably. You cannot remove, you can't really separate them. And the reason why I say this is because we focus on the environment. So being the first to offer a fully recyclable K-cup was a big deal. We've been working on a technology project with Georgian College, wherein we developed a new packaging machine. The packaging machine will improve our efficiency, allow us to improve our quality, reduce waste, but most importantly, it will allow us to offer, in the not too distant future, fully home compostable K-cups made with starches. The lids are paper fiber, and we use soya and vegetable inks to print on them. And
Wow.
what we're working at right now is to get all of that done in-house. We're really close on the technology piece. We've been working on it for 5 years, and we're going to be commissioning it by the end of the year. We're close. It's been a remarkable journey. It's cost a ton of money, but look, it's a good thing for the environment. And that relates directly to human health, because what's good for the environment, what the hell? Sorry. My apologies. And that's why they're interconnected, right? Like whatever happens in the environment directly happens to us as consumers, right? Like what we take in. So the importance of, allowing these things to naturally decompose, either in your garden, in the green box. I even say you can put them in the garbage, because if the digestion period by Mother Earth under the right circumstances is 35 to 60 days, could be different in Canada because of the extremes of temperature and stuff like that, it's a good thing. Then we don't have to have them being buried in landfill sites. So let me talk about that for 2 seconds. This experience that we had in creating a completely recyclable K-Cup was a coup. The problem that it created was that they still get buried in the landfill sites. So the municipalities do not have the capital, they do not have the expertise, and they do not have the resources to differentiate between single-use and recyclable K-Cups. There are things you could do by way of a float test, but it just takes a ton of money to get them back out so that they can be recycled. There are 2, maybe 4 municipalities in all of Canada that have that technology to recover it.
Wow, that's crazy.
You can imagine, right, how many K-Cups go in the garbage, even though they're in the blue box. I almost started to cry when that piece of information came to me from one of the engineers in Simcoe County. I just was devastated, because I thought we were doing this wonderful thing and spending all these additional dollars to make sure we were making a contribution. Boy, it's like getting sucker punched,
Right.
So quality, human health, the environment. I get really jazzed about our community. We do a lot of things for our community, and we're just a little wee company. So whatever we can do, in addition to the human health and the environmental thing, are important. I got all hung up a couple of years ago, and this was just around the time of COVID, about how much money are we spending in buying supplies from suppliers outside of North America, even within North America, right? So let's just take the example of outside of North America. So we're buying these supplies at a discount, right? But the problem is, if you look at the economic multiplier of $1, you spend $1, right? You go into a big box retailer, and those goods are sourced from, let's say, Far East. Only 19 cents of that $1 that you spend there gets recycled into the Canadian economy. The multiplier is so small, it's kind of pitiful. However, if goods are produced locally, so for example, the materials for K-Cups, the lids, boxes, those types of things, the economic multiplier is 63 cents per $1. Now, the reason why those numbers are so fresh, because there were 2 studies done, and the data that came out of them was almost identical. Can you imagine? One was done in Boston, in Massachusetts. So one of the schools did it. And another was done in BC. And they cited exactly the same numbers when they did. Now, I don't know if there was some plagiarism going on or whatever, but it was astonishing to me that you can have these 2 separate bodies doing an analysis of buying local, the impact of it. I'm a participant in LinkedIn. I wrote an article about it, got a ton of hits on it. People were kind of surprised, but it didn't take me much to kind of find the data that I was looking for, but it was pretty cool. And so in trying to source more things locally, that's important to us. This new technology that we developed is going to give us the ability to actually make the starch-based, fiber-based K-Cups for our product. But what we're going to do is we're going to manufacture them and offer them to all of our competitors. I mean, it's a business proposition at the same time, but also, get that product out there and make it economically viable for us, but more importantly, for Mother Earth.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that goes a super long way to not only enjoying the product because you like the taste of it, but feeling good about doing it in the process. I think there's a big understanding more than it used to be. The awareness is certainly a lot more there about the environment we live in and how we play in the playground, and doing it in an effective manner so that we protect future generations from, potential hazards if we're not doing it the right way.
Right. And there's a corollary of that too. So in the whole bean world, in the ground, bag of coffee world, it's important to look at the packaging too, because some of the materials are recyclable, but they're laminated. So you throw them in there, so what ended up happening is there's a bunch of things that we did that I could probably go at it ad nauseum. But one of the things that we did that was very cool, we developed a coffee program that is fundamentally indigenous to indigenous. In the same hemisphere, we have a producer of the green beans that ship them to us. We roast them on behalf of an indigenous group, and they distribute them and they sell them. So the beauty is you have an indigenous to indigenous program. But because this indigenous group is in the north part of Canada, right, the Inuit, out of Cambridge Bay, they have huge problems with not only getting coffee into their community, and even though they distribute all across North America, what do they do with the waste? Because can you imagine, like in that environment, nothing really breaks down. So we work really hard at finding materials that not only will preserve the integrity of the coffee while it's packaged, and the more organic ones aren't as inert to air, and air is the enemy, as say plastics or recyclables. We developed a bag in conjunction with one of our packaging suppliers that is a polished craft paper on the outside. It's absolutely stunning, with a recyclable layer on the inside. And so that's a step in the right direction. It's not the whole solution, but I think that the solution is not too far away as we go forward, right? And we just need to get there. There needs to be a little more development on the material science side, which happens daily. And everybody's doing a great job, but it's just at a snail's pace, right? That's what it is. I'd like it to be quicker so that we, can ensure that we're doing more for the environment earlier on. Because I won't see the benefit of my generation. You might see the benefit by the end of your. Sorry to be so down.
It is what it is, man.
You know what I mean? But I'm thinking about my grandkids. Like, hey, I have a responsibility to make sure you guys, I'm doing everything I can that your environment is as good as it was, when I was a kid. Because there's, it was a lot less back in the 1800s when I was a kid than it is today, say, for example, right?
No, that's phenomenal stuff. I just wanted to touch briefly before I ask you the next question on the community thing, because it hits home with Jeff and I. One of the many reasons, a big reason on why we do the show. We all know that local businesses, small, medium-sized businesses, is one of the biggest drivers in our economy. When they're all doing well, normally everybody else is on the same path as they are as well too. So knowing the fact that you guys are so invested in the community, making changes to spend more, but to keep those dollars in our local community and economy it's very admirable stuff. Just want to commend you for that.
Thank you.
And it's really nice to know, like you drive by the shop downtown, or you hear about the brand, or you stop by the retail shop at the South End. Clearly, obviously, as a customer, I know these things.
Yeah.
And where you guys are at, but it's nice to know. It's nice to have a conversation and see a lot what goes on, and which is going to lead me into another curious question of mine, which is more of a statement, but I'd like to see if you'd elaborate on it a little bit for me. The science that goes behind, the 250 profiles, learning, there's so much R&D that goes into a business like this. to really make sure that the product you're delivering is the way not only that you want it, but that the customers and potential customers will take to the product as well. That's a lot of information. That's a lot of study. There's a lot of dollars, but it's super fascinating to me that it's different. I mean, obviously, you take a painter, for example. There's some science that goes in that, knowing the colors, how to mix them. There's strategy on how you have your brush strokes, what looks good, what the do's and the don'ts. But this is just, to me, like next level stuff.
Well, surprisingly, it's quite simple, right? I mean, experimentation's a very, very cool thing. It's very interesting. And, we can pick up the science from the people around us. And how we feather that science into what we do is important. So what we learned is just, let's try this. Okay. Record what that tastes like, the texture, everything. Let's try this, which is once removed. And if you do a number of iterations, it doesn't take long before you have, a huge number of samples that you can say, oh, I really like this one, really like this one. Then you get a focus group together and you say, hey guys, okay, we did 200 tests through a whole range of roasts and profiles. Here are the ones that we picked. Don't rely on our expertise, because our taste buds may be so different than yours. It might not be representative, right? Like I like a really dark coffee. Not everybody does, right?
Right.
And I like it black. Not everybody does.
Yeah.
So long story short, we just look to them to tell us what they like, and we can agree or disagree. But most of the time, it reaffirms our intuition that this is right for a medium light, dark, whatever. This is right for espresso, that kind of thing. It's just affirmation at the end of the day. We kind of break it down so that we give them, the whole bandwidth of what the choices are. And then they just tell us whether they like it or not. But there are resources, for example, in our community, and not just specifically with regard to roasting, but you can imagine, this is the most amazing thing for me, and I'm approaching 70. The most amazing thing in my life is that we can do something where we start from a concept, just an idea. So the packaging machine and that we've developed in conjunction and collaboration with Georgian College over the last 5 years has been phenomenal. So the skill and the expertise and the science behind what they do is there in a big way, like in a big way, from 0 to 100. I came up with an idea what I wanted to do. And I wrote this little proposal to the head of research and innovation at Georgia. And they said, hey, you guys want to do a project together? Yeah, tell us about it. And I told them what I wanted to do and why I wanted to do it. And they said, okay, we're in, but we need to digest this. So we need a little time. And they went away and did their thing. Fast forward to the end of this. So we went through COVID, and there were critical delays during COVID because nothing was shipping, and the price curve was going like this on everything. It was just ridiculous. So we developed the concept. The design and the engineering were done in Barrie. Concept in Barrie, design and engineering in Barrie, fabrication all in Barrie, assembly all in Barrie, commissioning all in Barrie, programming all in Barrie. For all the components that we could generate in Barrie, they were all designed, engineered, and fabricated here. The off-the-shelf parts that we needed, well, they come from Germany and other places, because we didn't want to cheap out on inexpensive components. We wanted it to be state-of-the-art, and it truly is. But you can imagine, one city can do everything for us. So just to harken back, years ago, my wife and I had a technology company, and we couldn't get anything done in Barrie. And this was back, between 1998 and 2006. We couldn't get a thing done in Barrie. Everything was in the States, or everything was, overseas. And it used to frustrate me because the development timeline, would get stretched. The first product we developed took over 36 months, right? This one that we're developing is in its 5th year, but the complication and the number of things that are going on, and having dealt with COVID, if I compress the time frame, it's a fraction of what it would have been, right? Back in the day. And the thing that's really cool about that is the learning, like the stuff we're learning, what the students are learning, their commitment to it, those types of things. I mean, just unbelievable to me that it all's happening here. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, what a great place to live in. The city of Barrie gets involved. Invest Barrie's been involved. They want to see us succeed. We have these meetings, and Georgian sponsors all of these innovation events. And people from all kinds of industries within Barrie come, and we share stories. And, you know, I just learn a ton of stuff from people. I mean, what's wrong with that? Right?
A lot of intangibles that go along with all of that stuff. Like you're talking about how it's like a domino effect, you know, because you push the domino in the right direction this way, it starts affecting other dominoes in a really positive way. And you don't know about that until we get the chance to talk about it. What a cool story, man. Just really, really fascinating stuff. Absolutely love what you guys are doing out there.
And you know, the thing that's funny, I mean, like, just think about it. We're just this tiny little company, you know. So we have the roastery, right? We have a state-of-the-art roasters. We have a new cupping machine coming in that is state-of-the-art, right? We have our employees are just like brothers and sisters. They want to succeed. They love what we do. We treat each other fairly, you know, and it's a great work environment. We do the same at our store in the South End here, and cafe. People come into the cafe. The food is excellent. It's health focused, right? The people that work in the cafe are phenomenal. People love them. They're just so friendly, you know. And even though we are faced with, like everybody else downtown, with homeless and people that have unfortunate addictions, right? They come in and out. They're not our patrons, but we're respectful of them, right? And we have to be, because it's not fair to them that, you know, maybe some of the issues that they face are of their own doing, but it's not fair to them to be disrespected, because maybe their inner strength isn't what yours or mine might be, but they're treated well. And you know, we don't want to change the complex of who our customers are at all. So we're cognizant of it. You know, if they want to come in and buy a coffee, we'll allow them to do so, but we'll help them move to their next destination, right? Because as unfortunate as this might sound, there's a business proposition here that has to be honored. People that are typically our patrons are not as displaced as they are, and they don't appreciate them in the environment. Maybe this is something we want to cut out. I don't know. But I'm telling you this because there's more to running that type of business than what might meet the eye. And I knew we would be faced with something like that. But I think what's really important is that, you know, we treat them properly. So, you know, we're fair. And, you know, not everybody responds the same way. Some of them can be extremely difficult. But notwithstanding, we are absolutely fair, and we are absolutely touched by, you know, who they are. But in terms of the cafe, human health is a big thing. How we handle the disposition of our waste. So, for example, all the cardboard gets recycled. We separate all the plastics in the ones that can be recycled and the ones that unfortunately get sent to the landfill. All of that's addressed. We take the ground coffee, and if somebody wants the spent ground coffee to put in the garden, they can have it. In the same way that we take the chaff after roasting and bag it and give it to somebody who's a gardener and say, hey, throw this on your garden, right?
Yeah.
So the burlap bags, you know, we do everything we can to get them to a destination where they can get reused. There's an organization, the name escapes me right now, but what they do is they take care of dogs. And in the wintertime, they look for these sacks so that the dogs that are outside in kennels have a nice, you know, warm bed against the snow that builds up. And they're not out there all the time, but when they're out there through the day, at least they're lying on these sacks that we provide them for free. Come pick them up. Get people calling us all the time about pallets, right? Most of the time, pallets are recyclable, but they get damaged. People come and say, hey, can I have pallets? Take what you need. They build furniture out of it. They use it for structural things, Anything we can do that can make something, import something into further use should be important for every single person, right?
Very fascinating stuff. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your journey? Like, how and why did you guys get into doing what you're doing today?
So I'm going to be brutally honest with you. This was a failed investment, as I described earlier on. And it became a question. And my wife and I had been, I had spent 23 years as a corporate banker in my first 23 years of my life. And at the behest of my wife, she says, this is ridiculous. We have 3 kids. What are we doing? And, we're doing all this hard work and you're traveling all the time. And I'm kind of single parenting it for the most part. Why don't we do something that is for us? So as an executive, I left the banking world and we started this little technology company with a friend of mine who was a technologist. And I went out and I started to sell. So I put this controller. It was a home automation / distributed audio piece, and it just picked a bunch of big centers. The thing worked phenomenally well, sounded great, was built like a tank. And this was back in the late 90s. And nobody had a clue what it was about. So as a sales guy, I was failing miserably at communicating what it was all about. Finally, it hit me, and I went back out there, and I was able to demonstrate clearly to people. So I went to San Francisco, LA, New York, Chicago, all these big centers, to these big dealers, and I appealed to them. And then we started doing trade shows. Nothing happened for about 9 months. Then all of a sudden, the phone wouldn't stop. And the next problem was, oh man, how do we build all this stuff now, right? Because the orders were coming in. And it worked really, really great. So I learned a lot about, how to communicate with people and give them the Coles Notes version of what it is that we do so that they could assimilate it into what they were doing. So if they had a client, built a new house or was retrofitting a house, what could we do for them? And it grew. We ended up selling the company after about 7 years. And the company that acquired it was owned by a large Chicago-based firm, family, very wealthy family. 6 years after we sold it, Samsung comes along and gobbles up all of AMX. So our technology, little old Barry, here we go again, little me, tiny little microcosm of a company, ends up in the hands of Samsung. Can you imagine? Now, certainly by today's standards, the technology is completely irrelevant, really, because you have Bluetooth and you have Wi-Fi and you have all these other communication protocols that are simple and somewhat robust. But we did a bunch of firsts, and that's what distinguished us in that world. We did a bunch of firsts. We were the first company to build in a controller, a LAN port, a computer port that you could hook it up. My wife headed up engineering, and she had our computer scientist just develop an app that resided on the desktop that you could go in and control this room and control that room, turn up the volume, turn up the bass, switch stations, play another CD, those types of things, right?
Very cool.
It was remarkable. And it was just kind of like, trial and error. Okay, well, let's try this. Same thing that we're doing in the coffee world. It's just not in the technology space for coffee.
So are there any myths or misconceptions in the coffee world that you guys see on a regular basis from people?
I think so. But, a lot of it is kind of opinion, and I don't think really nested in fact, right? But people are allowed to have their opinions. I mean, what you like in a coffee and what I like in a coffee could be night and day, right?
Right.
But roasting coffee is not, in my mind, an extremely difficult thing, but it's not an extremely easy thing because, you need to find your niche and you need to find what makes, you better at it than a bevy of guys out there, right? Lots of guys will say, okay, I'm just going to take these beans, or let's use a Peruvian example again. I'm going to throw, 35 kilograms of beans in our roaster, and I'm going to, roast it at 439 degrees. That's it. Well, it isn't necessarily going to give you the best result. And that's why we look at all these profiles, right? The other thing we do is we do flavored coffees, wherein, we do things like toasted coconut, cinnamon Danish, and to replicate those flavors, it takes a little doing. We have a customer who's a big, well-known healthcare facility in our region. We do coffee for them. We do, we roast and we flavor coffee for them specifically to what they wanted. And it sells, they love it. And so we developed that profile for them. It was a combination of what do we roast it at, and how do we synchronize the taste of it? So that's another iterative process to say, well, how much flavor do we need? Where do we get the flavors from? Well, now we get them in Canada. Some of them are synthesized, meaning synthetic, but consumable for sure. And some of them are organic. Not everything can be duplicated today just organically, because you might not get the robustness of, butter tart or creme brulee or whatever it is that you want to accomplish.
Right.
So, there's all of that, right? Getting the right grind for K-cups versus getting the right grind for an espresso maker. We continue to innovate. We offer these food safe pails of 10 pounds of beans to our cafe and our larger users. Why? Let's not take the bags and throw them out. Bring the pail back. Or when we bring you a new order, we'll bring the pail back and we'll reuse it. So the reality is we save a lot and as much as humanly possible from going to the landfill. People love them too, because it keeps the beans fresh.
Love it. You've often probably heard somebody say this, and for our listeners as well too, that we have to have a balance in our life. That means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. To a business owner, for those who are listening who will understand this. As a business owner, there's a lot of time, especially when you're coming first into business, even when you are established, there's a lot of time that goes in. It's a passion thing. Most business owners would agree in saying that they're very passionate about what they do. It's one of the reasons why they come into business, and for other reasons as well too, and being the ability to do something for yourself, but you're creating something most of the time, or doing a process better, come up with a better product. So that passion can certainly make it easier to put in more hours than somebody who just works 9 to 5 at a corporate job and all of that stuff. So finding a balance is not the right word, because a balance means it's perfectly equal. And as business owners, we work a little bit more often than we get the chance to play. So I like to call it a harmony. It's something that Jeff and I quite joke about often, because we have different lifestyles. So Jeff doesn't have a problem working a little bit longer, but I've got a fiance, we have a daughter. My life is different than his, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I like to say, hey man, I need to have my harmony, because if I don't have my harmony, you're not going to get the best version of me. And that's what we need to go and do what we do every day. So when that harmony, you work on your business, in your business, but when you're not working on or in your business, what does Dan like to do for fun?
Well, I love the way that you pivoted to this. It's kind of interesting, right? Because the long and short of it is, you need to regroup, you need to recharge your battery, and you need to refresh. So you need a spacer, right? I spend, I would say my son is my best friend. We hang out all the time together. We walk the golf course, laugh, chuckle, go out and have a couple of beers and some wings. The other night we went to the baseball, Sunday afternoon, went to the baseball game in Toronto. It was phenomenal. We had this really amazing gift from a law firm that he deals with. So I do a lot of those things. My wife and I hang out all the time. We've never had a dog. We just got a new dog this year.
Oh, yeah?
Unbelievable. It's a Staffy. and his name is Kevin. And Kevin has like nothing but character. We go for these long walks and his ass wiggles and he does all this stuff, but he's strong. Like he could pull me up the hill, and I love to take him up through the bush, take him off the leash and let him go. And if there's a squirrel in a 100-mile radius, he's chasing it, right?
Yeah.
But it's great. Yeah. I cannot believe that we didn't have a pet earlier on. It's not complicated. As I get older, there are things in my life that would have been important at one point in time that have absolutely no significance at all. I don't really care about having this and having that, because those are physical things that you have to care for. Why the hell do I want to care for those things, right? So I got enough to care for because we have 3 business locations, and I'm the guy. Every single person that works for Beaver Rock, regardless of company, they're all female. So there's just me. I'm outnumbered.
You're outnumbered. Yeah.
But it's great because we're a really tight family, and we all pedal in the same direction. But I really think it's important to understand one thing. I happen to look at things as a glass half full. But think about this. I don't look at my job or the things I have to do as work. To the extent that they're not structured in repetition, right? I love to look at them in this way. Oh, I got a project to do over here. I got to finish that. So I'm going to do that. And then I have another project over here. So I move from one series from one project to the next in some form of succession. And in some cases they overlap, and I have to do, more than one at a given time. When we were building the cafe, we ran into all kinds of problems because there was just so much stuff hidden that we couldn't see until we got the drywall down. We did all the new lighting and everything. And I was down there, not a word of a lie, for 10 to 12 hours every day for probably the better part of 6 or 7 months. It removed me completely from the business, but my wife was able to run it without any problem. And if we had technical issues here, I'd come in and I'd spend a day here and do stuff like that. But it was projects, right? And if you go to the cafe, you'll see what the vision's like. It's simple, it's contemporary, it's ultra clean, and the quality's way up there. It's the branding that we need to do. And that sort of came about as a result of this. I wouldn't call it a negotiation. I would call it a constant discussion that my wife and I had over the vision. So, our brand is black and white with red maple leaf, and we're proud to be Canadians. And that's a big deal, right? It's a big deal to be able to say proudly that look at what we created, and we did it on our own. Now, as we grow and we open up more retail facilities, I won't be doing the work, but I have a full understanding of the whole process of how we get open, what we have to do. And I have a much better understanding of what it's going to cost. And I know what the labor element is if we have to revisit what we did last time. So this is a very eye-opening thing for me. I learned a ton of stuff about construction, although I've always loved it, all kinds of stuff. But it's the right attitude. It's, hey, I'm going to do this project. This is very cool. Then I'm going to do this project. Then I'm going to do that project. So there's some things that I can't do as well as, guys that are professionals, plumbers, electricians, and stuff like that. But, I can do the core work, like running the cables and making sure that we have the right voltage for this piece of equipment, the right, water. So there's another whole thing, right? When you're brewing coffee, particularly in a commercial setting, you've got to have the right water, right? It has to be treated. It has to have so many parts per million so that the coffee binds to the water. It can't be RO all the way through because it's so slippery that nothing sticks to it, and you lose the essence of the coffee. So those are things that you learn as you go forward. But I think it's great. I love having these projects. Why do people keep calling me when I tell them not to call me? Anyway.
I'm going to say something. You might agree with me. You might not, but I think you might. Come boiling down to we're talking about, how the mindset, how you view it when you're a business owner, you're going out doing what you're doing every day. It's more like a lifestyle for me. I don't know. It probably might be the same for you, but the business is a part of who I am. Right. And when it's a part of who you are, you're just going out, you're being authentic. That's why I got my ball cap on backwards. Right. That's just me. It's just who I am. You know, if I'm out in a little bit more of a professional setting, obviously I'm not going to have my ball cap backwards, but going out and doing what we do every day, going out and doing what you do every day. And for most business owners that are out there that have that passion, it's not work to them. It's what they believe in. It's their baby, and it's not work. It's just going out and doing something that you enjoy day in and day out, and then get to build your lifestyle around that.
Part of your identity, part of your signature, right? So I'm not worried about legacy, and I'm not worried about, anything that I have to say to people with respect to what I have or what I don't have, right? As I've gotten older, like it's just the learning and the experience and the challenge. Like, can we get this to work? Can we actually open a cafe and have people come? Can we be successful enough to get it to generate enough money that we don't have to close, right? A lot of unknown stuff. I mean, who in their right mind at my age considers opening a cafe? It's kind of like, oh, what color is the world in yours? What color is the sky in your world, right? It's just one of those things. Yeah. But in the absence of not trying, what are you going to do? Like, I had this experience last year. Got together with a bunch of my buddies from high school, and I was sitting there, and in my mind's eye, I'm looking at them and going, oh boy, what are you guys doing? Because, we were all athletes as kids, and, we did stuff, but they retired. And they took the retirement opportunity pretty strongly. You can't golf all the time. You got to keep yourself going. And it doesn't mean you have to go at warp speed. What's wrong with just pulling back, right? But keeping the continuity of doing something and challenging yourself and being rewarded by being successful in the challenge is a very, very powerful thing.
Well, the mind, right? The mind is a muscle. It's got to keep being working. I've seen people who've retired that, like you said, they took it a little bit more seriously than others, and just kind of let everything go and think, I worked enough my whole life, and so I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit around and watch TV, or not even go golf, just like waste away type of thing. And then 10 years goes by, and it's like, man, you aged like 20 years in that 10 years.
It's like being president of the United States, right? Like, like what you're describing, right? They age because of the pressure and the stress, right? There's no question about it. And the stress that they impose on themselves by being inactive, I think, is a different type, but impactful, right?
So I wanted to ask you about your dog, Kevin. How old's the, is it still a puppy, or?
Kevin's 10 months.
Okay. Yeah.
He's nuts. He's absolutely nuts, but he's joyous. He's happy. It doesn't matter what happens. And I think this is true for most pet owners. When they come home and they're smiling, it doesn't matter what kind of day you've had. They don't see you any differently than they're just so totally excited. But he's a strong little guy. I love him. And how did we come up with Kevin? Well, you remember the movie Home Alone?
Yep.
So my wife and my daughter decided, they came up with all these names that were basically like 3 letters. And I said, you guys, like, originally my wife had her heart set on having a little female dog because, the temperament's different and stuff like that. So she gets all hooked up with the breeder, and the breeder's out in Squamish where my youngest daughter is. And the litter's born. All the female dogs were gone, and there were these two little guys left. So she shows me a video of the 2 dogs, and she said, well, now we're going to have to wait for a female. I said, why? Look at this little guy. And it just like smiling and bouncing around and doing all this stuff. And the other one was more placid, right? Anyway, she says, really? I said, yeah, what's wrong with that? Let's get a little guy. So she decides that that's what we're going to do. Then I find out that, they came up with all these crazy names. Then I find out that he is of a litter of 7. And I said, Kevin of 7. And then the funny thing is, there's a movie with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds called The Proposal. And there's this little white dog in it, and it's just a little puppy. And what's her name? Betty. She's passed away. Actress
Betty White.
Betty White. She's carrying around this little white dog, and the name is Kevin. And the dog was so cute. And I just said, oh, "Come on, you guys! Like, the dog's got to be Kevin." And that's how we came up with his handle. And he's great. He responds to it, and he's a lot of fun. I love having him. It's great. It's a and at this age, it's just a funny thing to do. But I'm glad we did it. All right.
Happy for you guys. I've got a 3.25-year-old Australian Shepherd.
Oh, nice.
A red tri, gorgeous. He's supposed to be between 40 and 44 pounds, the breeder said. He ended up 70 pounds. I think he's down in the low 70s. Like, he's just a big lug.
Yeah.
But he's a suck. And like you said, that feeling you get when you get home from work, they're just so happy to see you. And then we've got a 5-year-old Chihuahua. That's
oh, wow.
Around. So Chihuahua came from my relationship with Julian and my now fiance, and then Jax was mine. And Rambo he got attacked, I think, when he was 2 or 3 years old. So never really trusted any dog after that. So it took a little bit of time, but now they get along really well, and his demeanor's changed a lot. And they're two
buddies.
Yeah, the small one thinks that he's the big one, and the big one thinks that he's the small one. It's just so funny.
I love that. That's great. I can picture it. You can picture it. It's vivid. I think it's very, very cool.
So in life, we pick our path, right? We walk that path. This is the path of life, and it's a long journey, and things happen. It's never truly linear. Yeah. Life gets in the way. It'll throw things at us. It'll throw hardships at us, obstacles at us. Life is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And sometimes those are in forms of tragedies. Some people experience more of those, other people a lot less. But what's always fascinated me about human beings is this ability to look at the glass half full, how we hang on to hope, that mindset, finding silver linings, because we have to move forward. Yeah. We don't have a choice. Time moves us forward every single day, and be able to get past those is something. Adversity is a real thing. And so I wanted to ask if you've ever experienced a hardship, a life challenge in your life, maybe something that you overcame, something that made you better, maybe made you stronger, maybe you took some silver linings from it.
Well, I did, in fact, a couple times. So I was a young guy. I was second year university, and my father dies, and he was young. And it was totally unexpected. He was 64 years old. I was the youngest of 5. So I still have my eldest brother's 84 years old, turning 85 next June. So, and I was at school, and I just didn't know how to address it. And, so I had to readapt my whole thinking, because it was constantly in the back of my mind about him going. And I got along great with him. And he's a real athletic guy when he was young, and loved to watch the Leafs, and NHL hockey at night. And I'd sit with him, as a little kid all the way up until I became a teenager, and we'd watch the hockey game Saturday. It was the big deal. Bowl of popcorn, hockey game, That was a difficult transition, but that's when I was at university. I had an even more difficult situation where I was a single parent. So I've been married twice. I was a single parent, and my 2 youngest were in diapers, and my son was 4.5. So I had 3 under 5, single parent. My first wife takes off, not healthy, not well. She ended up passing away, but notwithstanding, I just came to this overwhelming conclusion that even though I had a big job and I was working in the banking world and I had large commitments and I ran a portfolio, I said, hey, I wanted to be a father. I got to be a father. This is what I have to do. So love my kids. We're like this. My wife, Roz, and I have been together for 31 years and 30 years. Going on 31.
Congratulations.
And she bonded so effectively and so efficiently with the kids that I became persona non grata. Hey, Dad, how you doing? Good. Where's mom? Well, why don't you phone her? She's not picking up. Where's mom? Hang on. So the call's to mom. It's not to me anymore. It's kind of like, okay, guys, I'm recording this, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
But they're great. I love my kids. We love each other. We all get along famously, and it's an amazing thing. Kev, come here. Come here. Oh, you won't come over. Kevin, come on. I want to introduce you to somebody.
Oh yeah, for the people on video, get an opportunity to take a look at the Kevin.
Kevin, come here. See if I can get him to come. He's gonna dash away. Come here, buddy. Oh, you chicken. He's a chicken. But he's a beautiful little dog. He's a gorgeous little dog.
Awesome stuff. Well, hey, it's great that you've got that relationship with your family. Not every family is fortunate to have those inner dynamics. I'd be one to say I'm lucky we have that as well too. All of our family lives in Winnipeg. My dad, at a point in his career, took on a big role and moved us away from everybody else for a better opportunity. We look back now, and obviously we had to make some sacrifices, not having, the birthdays with cousins and those, tight relationships with friends. We have a couple of friendships that we still carry to this day, me and my sisters, which went back for a couple of weddings back there, one this year, one last year in October.
Nice.
So we cherish those, but we're all really tight. We actually all live within 10 minutes of each other, which we'd never thought that would happen. So that's always a real cool thing. So definitely value the value of family, and really happy to see that you guys have that as well. So one last question for you before we wrap up. What's one thing that you wish our listeners knew about your business?
Wow. Holy gee. I'm not really the kind of guy that can boil it down to one thing. But in our brochure, how I talked about the 4 tenets?
Yeah.
Tenets. I keep saying tenets, but it's tenets. We care. We care about quality. We care about human health. We care about the environment, and we care about our community. So we care. We just care. And, if we can lead by example, maybe somebody somewhere that's starting or running another business might say, hey, it's not such a bad thing to do. Maybe, we can get that kind of notoriety too. And I don't think we do enough to promote the fact that we do care. And even though we have these really nice brochures, we have one for private label. So we do private label for some large grocery companies, right? And that's all driven by quality. And, we do design work in-house. Everything we do is kind of driven organically. And so I think caring is a big deal. And, you can't always carry, the passion and emotion across the finish line, because sometimes you can't get there, but you can get across the finish line. Sometimes it just requires that incremental push to do it that might not come from the heart, but it gets you there, and it gets you to the place that you need to be so you can get on the next path, right? But I can tell you, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. When it materializes and the mistake's in front of you, you have to step back for a second and say, okay, what really transpired here? Did I make a mistake voluntarily because I was so emotional, or did I make a mistake simply because I was too aggressive? Can you grow your business too quickly? Sure. Can you overspend on certain things? Absolutely. So gas pedal and brake, although if you have an electric vehicle today, you don't have to really worry about it, particularly if you drive a Tesla, right? Anyway, notwithstanding, it's okay to make mistakes. What I've really tried to do for the most part is avoid the same mistake. And they can come in different forms, but it can be the same mistake. And I've done it a couple times, but not catastrophically, touch wood.
Oh yeah, and that notion of falling forward, right?
Yeah. It's okay to make mistakes. Just get back on your feet. You don't have to go at warp speed, but get back up on your feet find the direction and go, right?
Yeah, or sorry.
There's so many opportunities. We live in a country that we are just absolutely blessed with. And if you look at world events today, and you look at the US, and you look at, what's happening in Israel, and you look at the Middle East, and there's just, we are so blessed. It's unbelievable, right? Because we don't face those kinds of things. Heaven forbid if we do. But we have opportunities that are second to none in this country and in this hemisphere.
I would certainly agree with that. Fail forward was the word I was looking for, not fall forward. Fail forward, continue to get up as long as you're moving forward.
Yep.
You're going to be all right. Dan, phenomenal conversation. I loved having you on the show. I could talk about coffee all day as a consumer, avid fan. Love the coffee. We'll continue to drink it, sing your praises. Really happy to have you on the show. For those who are interested, maybe they want to learn a little bit more about you guys, what would be one of the best ways that they can go ahead and do that?
I think the best sampling's at the cafe. Ha, ha, ha. But we also have a store in the South End. We're about to put up a new website, and it's different than our current website, which I absolutely hate because it never really captured who we are. But this new website, I rewrote all the narrative personally. I'm not a big fan of, trying to find some AI chat GPT to write a nice flowery section. So, I try to write as concisely as I can just about what we do. And there's a learning in that too. But, first thing is website. We have great, phenomenal products. We're proud to represent Barrie and region, right? And we're just happy to be in this community. It's a great place. We have lots and lots of things to be thankful for, right?
Beautiful, man. And we are happy that you're here, happy to help you tell your story as well. Dan, thank you very much for doing this.
Sean, keep up the great work. You guys are just such a great portal to knowledge. Just keep doing it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com or call 705-413-3775.